Hello. Hello, everyone. Elena, Lily, Joel, Haley, Julia, Kenzie, John, Clark, Sean, Kaylee, Leah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Presidential Poems. I am the spirit of past presidents. You can see I am in the Oval Office of today, but you can tell as I go in and out of phases that I am a specter of the past presidents. Today, we will be reading presidential poems, and we will be discussing the presidency, the Electoral College, and also the conventions and the executive branch by reading poetry. Let's jump right in. It's very exciting. Who has the poems? If you have them, we will start with Could You Be President? I need two people who would like to read. All right.
I think that might be coming from me.
Joel, here's how we read these poems. If you look at the poems, you'll notice there's a blue side and a red side. And then in the center is purple. So, Joel, will you read the blue? Lily, will you read the red? I will read the purple parts of this poem. We're reading Could You Be President? It's simple, it's easy, you can do it. 1, 2, 3, Joel, begin.
The Constitution in Article 2.
Spell out the presidential powers.
And if it could be you.
Were you in the United States natural born?
You have to live inside the U.S. 15 years or more.
Now reach the age of 35.
And that's all it takes, you gratify.
If you win the election, you serve for 4 years.
You may run one more time.
But be prepared to retire as 8 years come near.
As president, you'd be in charge of the executive branch.
Working with the Congress can be a delicate dance.
Congress writes the bills and sends them to you.
Do you write them to law or veto?
How would you know what to do?
The president is the commander of the U.S. military might.
Could you weigh all the reasons?
Maybe send young men and women to fight.
As the head of the country,
the president travels the globe.
Would you look good in a kimono?
Or what is that word?
Emirate
robe.
So think about these questions, decide if you must.
And then run for president.
You need someone we can trust.
Very good. And of course, I would rather be in an El Camino than a kimono any day. An El Camino is a 1970s car truck. If you're an El Camino, look it up. So anyway, and of course, an emirate robe is from the Emirates. It's the robes that you see in the Middle East. Now, very well read. Thank you. The first question I have is, and you can type it in or you can open your mic and talk to me. What are the 3 requirements to be president of the United States?
You have to be a natural born citizen, you have to be 35, and you have to have lived in the United States for 14 years.
You know, 2 of those make sense to me. You have to be 35 years of age. Wow, that's pretty specific. And you have to live inside the United States for 14 years. I get that. But what does natural born mean? What does that mean?
You were born here.
Born where? Here? In my house?
No, you were born in the U.S.
Where's that? Where's the U.S.?
In the world?
In the world? Yeah, the U.S. is in the world. Yeah, but what about, well, but I don't know. What about if you were born on a military base in Hungary when you were born and your parents were in the military? Were you considered natural born?
Yeah, those are considered U.S. property.
Okay. What about if you were born off a military base and you're in another country, but your parents are both United States citizens?
Yeah, you would be, because technically you would.
Okay. What if you were born in Canada and your father was Cuban?
No, you wouldn't.
No?
No.
No? Everyone agree that
so.
no, you can't run for president? Does anyone disagree?
Wouldn't it be something else, not president? It would be like some other kind of...
No, I just wonder if everyone else disagrees, because does anyone know what happened in the 2016 election? A man that almost won the nomination, where was he born? Anyone? Ted Cruz?
Yeah, what I knew of Ted Cruz. I don't know where he was born though.
Canada. He was born in Canada. The exact thing that I just said. His father was Cuban, his mother was from the United States, but he was born in Canada. So the big fight was whether he could or could not run for president. And the point is that none of these things are so set in stone that you can't fight against them and try to win. There were literally three lawsuits against Ted Cruz as he was running, going through the courts to decide. Now, let me ask you this. Who do you think would decide finally? Let's say Ted Cruz wins. He was born in Canada. Some people think that's not natural born. Who do you think makes the final decision?
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court. Of course, it's never actually final because then it can go back to the Congress. We have checks and balances and they can make a new law or they can revisit the Constitution. But you're right. That's what would have happened had he won. It would have gone to the Supreme Court at some point, who would have decided the fate of the presidency, which it has done in the past. Does anyone know what year the Supreme Court decided the presidency? Right after we all thought everything was going to stop because of computers falling apart because of the change in the 2000, the Bush election. It was that's amazing. Isn't that amazing stuff? These are how these things are decided. Now, the next question I have, it was very important. What are the three branches of government? This is a fourth grade question.
Legislative, judicial, and executive.
That's right. Legislator, judicial, and executive. And the president is, of course, the executive. And you get 4 years, and then you can win and win 2 more. Great. Next one, the easy poem over. Let's move on to choosing the president, the Electoral College. Something exciting to do here. I need 2 people that want to read. 2 people that want to read. Joe, Lily, wonderful job. Who else will do this?
Julia, Clark, come on.
I'll read.
Kenzie, perfect. You're in. Who else?
I will.
Yay. Was that Julia?
Yay.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kenzie and Julia, we're doing choosing the president, the Electoral College. So Kenzie read the blue, Julia read the red, and I will read the purple because I'm amazing. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, begin.
In 1789, when the country was new,
No one wanted a king, so what did they do?
the revolution was over,
Someone had to lead,
decided by the people.
but how to proceed?
Let each state send a delegate, one they trust.
To vote our decision,
To the convention or bust,
an electoral college was created.
so delegates could decide.
Over all of the nation who as president would preside.
Any citizen
In any state,
can play a vital role.
in this important fate,
Just be over 18 and to the polls not too late.
Once registered to vote,
they find their polling place.
And when election day arrives, they get a say in the race.
once the votes are counted,
They choose a party slate,
which means groups of electors.
vote the decision of the state.
The electors from every place
With a star on the flag,
meet to cast their votes.
for the candidate they brag.
When the electoral votes are counted,
Who is president when they are through?
Why, it's the lucky candidate with 270 or more electoral votes. Woo-hoo! Okay, that's a good poem. That last line, awkward. Awkward, and it says woo-hoo. I wrote it, I know, I would admit it. So anyway, first of all, the first thing I said there was that the voters get a say in the race. Why do I say a say?
They have an opinion.
They have an opinion, but do they decide? Do the voters decide?
Kinda.
No.
Well, kinda is not yes, is it? Yes, of course. No, the voters get their opinion, but then the Electoral College decides, and I've got an amazing thing to tell you in about 2 minutes after we talk about this. So this poem is dealing with 3 concepts. One, that we get to vote, and you have to be how old to vote?
18.
18, and you have to be one of these a citizen of the United States. Also that we have a national electoral college. And that means that we are not a democracy. What kind of government do we have?
Republic?
A republic, of which it stands one nation under God, indivisible, all those things. We are a representative republic, meaning we vote for people who are supposed to go vote as we tell them. It doesn't always happen. And by the way, and the third thing is that we also do the Democratic and Republican convention every year to choose who will be the president. Now, the point of that, though, is that was never a thing back in the founders' days. They didn't think of anything like a convention to decide. The Congress just decided. And that was all the way basically up to about 1910, when Oregon was the first state to hold a primary, where they let people vote to decide who they wanted to then vote for president. But it was a real mistake at the time, because only one state, everybody else just choose. In 1912, I've been telling this to everyone, Theodore Roosevelt wanted to challenge Howard Taft. And they had 12 states that did primaries. 9 of them overwhelmingly voted for Teddy Roosevelt. The others, pretty much. But the other 36 states had no primary whatsoever, and they could send any electorates they want. They sent all Taft delegates. Didn't even ask the people. So Taft wins overwhelmingly. Teddy Roosevelt leaves the party, going to run as an independent. So I don't want to go too deep into the Democrat and Republican convention, only to say that there's lots of delegates. Every state does something different. 2 of them do caucuses, where people have to show up and actually party and say, I want this guy, and have to fight and talk and stuff like that, where the rest of us vote, like in Kentucky, where we vote our primary. In Kentucky, when you vote in the primary, you have to choose which side you're voting for. Some states don't do that. You can vote for who you want. But here you have to decide, I'm a Democrat for this election, or I'm a Republican for the primary. Now, what I want to talk about is incredible. And that is something, a Supreme Court case going up this week about the Electoral College. Does anyone remember what happened in the 2016 election? How did Donald Trump become president?
He got more electoral college votes, but he lost popular vote.
That's right. He got more electoral college votes, but he lost the popular vote. See, what isn't spelled out in the Constitution is what the the electoral delegates have to do, or who they have to vote for. Just like we were talking about being natural born, some people think that the Constitution kind of says you have to vote for who you're told to vote for. The state had this many votes, you get this many votes, you're told to vote for that person. Other people think the founders, and a lot of founders scholars say the founders' goal was that you don't have to vote for who the people in your state voted for, because your people may not be that bright. That's what I love. The founders always said the majority may not always be right. So in the last election, how many was it? I wrote it down. 3 delegates who were supposed to vote for Hillary Clinton did not vote for Hillary Clinton. They voted for Colin Powell. Then they went to a bunch of Republicans they thought would side with them and said, hey, you know what you need to do? Vote for Colin Powell too. And then what will happen is we won't have anybody getting 270, and they'll have to do a whole nother election. Well, the problem with most electors is, and I don't know if it's a problem, but it's a thing, is that they are hired by their party, and most of them, their lives are basically in politics. Their living, their money, everything they do, they're with their party. So there's almost 0 chance ever anyone would ever go to the other side. So no one did, except for these 3. They were sued, and they all paid fines because they were sued by the college. They paid a $1,000 fine, and now it's come all the way to the Supreme Court as to whether delegates can change their vote or not. Amazing. This is, I could not be, I'm giddy with excitement. So, by the way, in the past, 180 faithless electors. They call them faithless electors. There have been 180 of them in the past. Is anyone else fascinated by that? I just can't believe it. That's going on right now.
Oh, okay, let's go on to the next poem.